So Horror Mayhem continues, and the next book in line was Cycle of the Werewolf by Stephen King with illustrations by Berni Wrightson. This was 1983, give or take. And Cycle of the Werewolf is, let's be generous, it's a long short story. It's not quite a novella. This was King mid-addiction, and I think the story really is a parallel of what he was going through, the addiction that he was consumed by, and I'm sure he felt like a monster, that he was destroying everything and everyone around him when he was really at the height of his success. So yeah, I won't issue any spoilers in case nobody's read this, but it's a fine book. I enjoyed it this time even more so, I think, than when I read it when it first came out, and I certainly appreciate the art so much more. Berni Wrightson he's just a genius, and boy, it shows in every illustration in this thing. And it was a good pairing. So, the publisher needs to get a new Stephen King book out. King has this short story lying around. It's a beautiful merger of comics and prose. And it's a perfect marriage, really. Wrightson and King, they complement each other in this very well. Now, King admits it at the beginning of the book that the cycle of the moons don't exactly jibe with reality, but it fits the story very well. So we'll give him that. Essentially, what you have are 12 short stories, 12 very short stories about each victim, as you have this sort of countdown towards December, and the confrontation between the stories, we're going to put in quotation marks, protagonist and the werewolf in question. And it's built a little bit like a mystery, like who is the werewolf, and typically that's what werewolf stories end up being more often than not. In this, I don't think there were enough clues kind of sprinkled throughout, but the reveal certainly wasn't shocking by any stretch of the imagination. But all in all, a fun book, one I really enjoyed. Like I said, I think I enjoyed it more now than I did then. I think I was kind of burnt a little bit because it was so short, and the story felt so slight when I was younger. But now, I kind of see it for what it is, and that kind of parallel to King's addiction. In 1983, I was just beginning my foray into drug use, and so my own addiction would come a few years later. Yeah, I think looking back on it now in that context, the story has much more impact. But it was a fun read, and a fine addition to the Horror Mayhem catalog. I hope everyone is having a great Horror Mayhem, and I look forward to seeing what other offerings you all have as the month progresses.